An entitled older couple freak out when their card doesn't work at my cash register, claiming that it's all because I don't know how to do my job instead of some kind of problem that they caused themselves. Things got so bad that the man of that couple actually threw a coffee cup at me in a fit of rage, as he simply couldn't understand why I couldn't do my job. And I've honestly never been more angry with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, this is a story from when I worked at a very popular theme park in Florida, and this incident is one that almost made me quit. I was working as the cashier at a bakery store area for the resort I worked at. It was really busy and my line was very long. I was a fast cashier, so I was moving through the guests rather quickly. I hear an older man and woman arguing with each other as they come up through my line, but I just mind my business and I ring up their things. The man then says with an attitude that he needs a cup for coffee. So I grab one, I sit it on the counter, and I ring it up with the rest of their things. I tell them their total and they pull out their room card to pay. Now, room cards for reference were connected to their guest IDs, and guests could also connect a debit or credit card to them to try and make things easier during their vacation. So I go through the process of charging the card, but the computer won't read it. And I do it multiple times, but still I get nothing. The older woman then says, "This is the second card that's doing this." The older man responds by saying, "Well, what am I supposed to do? She's the one that doesn't know what she's doing." And he's literally referring to me. I look at him and I say, "Sir, do you have the debit or credit card associated with the room card with you? I could just use that instead of this." At this point, the old man then starts screaming at me. He says to me, "If I had that, I wouldn't have handed you the room key. Why can't you do your job?" Now at this point, I'm trying to calm down and remain not ignorant. A nice guest behind the man chimes in and says to the older gentleman that if it's happened 2 times already, it's probably because they're putting it next to their cell phone or something else that is demagnetizing it because it happened to them as well. This old jerk then looks at this nicer young man and says, "Who asked you?" The young man raises his hand and says sorry sarcastically, while other guests look at the older couple like they're nuts and look at me with sympathy. I look at him and I say, "Sir, ma'am, do you have any other form of payment?" And at this point, the man throws the stuff they had angrily on the counter, and his wife follows up by knocking the cup on the ground. At this point, some people leave the line, and the welcome desk lady some feet behind me stare on in bewilderment. The older man then starts screaming, "I don't even want this crap anymore. All I wanted was a coffee." Now me, wanting them to just leave my line and get off my nerves, I say to them, "Here, I'll give you the coffee for free." I hand him another cup, which he attempts to snatch out of my hand, causing this one to also drop to the ground. And this was the moment that he did something to me that honestly blew my mind. He picks it up and angrily throws it at me. He screams out, "I need another one." And at this point, my mind was blown. Guys, I was shaking. What I'm feeling at that moment wasn't rage, but rather it was wrath. I'm brown, but my face and neck were red. I then understood why God didn't give humans superpowers, because I would have reduced that entire place to ashes, starting with that older couple. Everything would have gone up in flames. I then grabbed another cup and I sat it on the counter. Before handing it to the man, I calmly spoke to him. I said, "Sir, instead of acting like this, all you had to do was ask. You see that desk behind me? They can print you a new card if you need it." Him and his wife seemed to deflate, but said nothing as I handed him the cup. I then asked them to leave my line and they walked away. The nice man and his woman looked at me with pity, and the woman said she was sorry that I had to go through that. I managed to ring up their things, but I couldn't continue. So I called my manager on the phone that was next to the cash register. She answered and instantly knew by my voice that something was wrong. I then told her that I needed a break and that I couldn't be there right now. She said okay and said she was on her way, and then a minute later told me to take a breather. I couldn't even make it to the worker break room bathroom before the tears started, so I ran to the guest bathroom into a stall and I cried there. I cried not because I was sad, but because I was angry and had to suppress it. I was boiling over like a pot of water on the inside. Throughout that week, no matter where I saw that man and his wife, I gave them the nastiest stink eye I could possibly muster. Suddenly, they were super nice to everyone else, but refused to make eye contact with me longer than a few seconds. And although they never apologized for the way they treated me, they did, however, look incredibly guilty anytime they saw me. Okay, I resonate with this so much because this captures so beautifully what it's like to be in customer service. Not only do you get to deal with people all the time who treat you like garbage, but also you have other people trying to give their sympathy to you for the way that you got treated. Like, I'm not blaming the other couple for being like, "Wow, I'm so sorry you got treated like that." But sometimes, honestly, it really feels like when you're in customer service, whether that's a cashier or a server or something like that, you become this animal in a cage that people can either treat really nicely or treat like garbage depending on who it is. And it's like, yes, the man and woman of this story are absolute pieces of garbage, but also being told, "I'm so sorry you have to deal with that," in my opinion, is super condescending. I know they meant well, but for me, I would still be super upset because there's nothing anybody can do about this. They can't can't stop them from acting like that, and I also, in some cases, can't stop them from doing that either. Like, just look at the way the original poster reacted here. They had to not only give them a free cup of coffee, but they had to be nice about this instead of being like, why are you talking to me like that? Because they knew for a fact they would lose their job. If I had $1 for every time I wanted to tell off a patient or a customer or any other field that I've worked in, where you're like a forward-facing member of the company, I would have so much money it's not even funny. And I think anybody who's worked customer service would understand where I'm coming from there. And I also understand them running to the bathroom and crying because I've been there as well. I'm not sad or scared about the way they talk to me, but instead I'm so angry that I have no control of the situation. And this for me is why having a good manager is so important in these kind of jobs. Because any manager who's worth their weight in salt would literally tell you like, okay, you can tell them off and tell them to get lost. You can deny service, and yes, you can tell them to leave. But if they had a different manager who was not compassionate about your situation, they could easily side with these pieces of crap that treated you like garbage. And by the way, they tossed their items at you in a fit of rage, all because they screwed up their stupid card. Like, that's not your fault. That's nobody's fault but theirs. This story hits so many layers deep for me. I love it so much because honestly, it really captures what it's like to be in customer service. Because truly, especially nowadays, these kinds of interactions happen way more than people might realize. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I got fired several years ago right before Thanksgiving, leaving me in such a pinch that it honestly ruined so much of my life. So I decided to get some petty revenge by ensuring that their online presence for this company would be littered with negative reviews that they could never escape from. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, this happened at an old company and job of mine. For reference, they messed me over so bad and they really did me dirty. They fired me for no reason, but the manager in charge felt threatened by me. I truly was a solid employee, and I had a hunger to grow, learn, and overwork myself. This was a while back. My managers starting off were great, but the last one was an external hire and couldn't answer a phone call, let alone should be a manager in the first place. He is too concerned about who he can bang and make sure that he only hires ones within a certain criteria that is completely inappropriate. Well, the company has a 2.6 rating on Indeed, and constantly there are negative reviews and a few positive reviews. I would have a positive review too if I wasn't working under a dirtbag for half my time there. Anyway, since that time, I go back and I make sure to thumbs up all the negative reviews as they come in. And I'm doing this so no one else considers working with them or to encourage that the negative reviews are in fact true to how they are. Now, it's stupid and petty, but honestly, I don't care. I would celebrate if that company burns down to the ground. They fired me days before Thanksgiving. You know, a single mother who had the top performance and saved the company millions of dollars. Yes, that's right, millions of dollars. So in the end, they were just another crooked corporation system, and I'm honestly so glad I'm away from them, and I truly pray for their downfall. Oh man, I've been there 100%. You leave a job that treated you like crap, and so you decide, okay, let's make their online presence suck. And sure, I've thought about doing this in some kind of way, where I make their online presence look like garbage or something like that, but it seems like you decided, oh no, I'm gonna do it. And you started like really making sure that people saw these negative reviews. And I don't totally think that's petty, like it really does seem like these people suck, and people need to know exactly what they're getting into. So the fact that they have a 2.6 rating on Indeed, and they really are just not having a good time on that regard, in my opinion, will do wonders for this company and making sure that people avoid them. Because I don't know about you, but if I see a 2.6 out of 5 rating on some kind of website, then I, as the customer or even a potential hire, would be like, wait a second, why do they suck so much? And then I would immediately go to the reviews and be like, wait a second, why do these people have such bad ratings? Thus completing the cycle that the original poster wanted to happen. So yeah, I think what you're doing is well deserved, because from the sounds of it, these people absolutely deserve the trouble. My idiotic father is convinced that Donald Trump invited him specifically to come to his inauguration. And right now, I'm worried that he's fallen for a scam, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was visiting my parents this weekend. They live out of state, so I don't see them often, but my mom had just gotten out of the hospital. While I was there, I had one of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had with my father. I said to him, remember, never give any money to people who call or email you. The scammers are getting really advanced, and people who think they're prepared for this somehow still fall for it. They especially target older people. My father then said, oh, I know. I would never do that. We don't fall for scammers. So I respond and say, well, that's good. Just letting you know they've escalated things and gotten really good at convincing people that they are legit. They spoof numbers, they buy your info online, and they try to make you believe them. Now, my dad, who's slightly irritated by my insistence, said to me, I know, I got it. We use Wells Fargo because they have have really good security against that stuff, and they'll give you your money back, because most scams attack your bank account. At this point, I looked at him and I said, sure, I guess, but if you make a payment through your bank, then maybe that can help, but there's no guarantee. But my father kept saying that he knew what he was talking about, and that apparently he coaches other older people about it. So I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm just making sure that you're aware of this, because most of the time, they don't attack your bank account. They convince you to withdraw cash and put it on a gift card or Bitcoin, and then give them the information. Then the money's gone and nobody can help you get it back. But even with my warning, my father kept saying, I know, I would never fall for that. And I just said, okay, that's good. Well, not even a few minutes later, my dad responded in a way that honestly was so weird. He said to me, you know, if your mom didn't get sick, I would have been flying to Washington today for the inauguration tomorrow. I then look up at him pretending to be interested, and I say, oh really? Well, that's cool, I guess. He said to me, yeah, I donated some money to Trump, so he sends me stuff in the mail. It was kind of a lot, but not really that much, but it was a good amount. So yeah, basically Trump sent me an invite to the inauguration. He was going to send his private jet to pick me up and fly me to Washington, and put me in a hotel with all expenses paid. Now at this point, he was smiling, and I was waiting for him to say, oh, I'm just kidding, but he didn't. And it was right then that I realized he was serious. I looked at him and I said, well, it sounds like a scam to me, but my dad responded by saying, no, it's real. Trump's been sending me stuff all the time in the mail ever since I donated. He invited me specifically. After that, I just changed the topic because I didn't want to argue. It is so wild to think that my dad actually believed all of this, especially after insisting that he would never fall for a scam. Sadly though, I wouldn't be surprised if he falls for a Trump-related scam down the road, because from the looks of it, he doesn't seem like the brightest apple in the bunch. Oh my gosh, that is so weird. Seriously, how can you fall for something like that? The second any politician, regardless of who it is or what side of the aisle they're on, sends me something in the mail asking for a specific donation, like that for me is a giant red flag, and I would be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's crazy. Because seriously, dude, think about it. Does this guy really think that the president is going to invite him specifically? You know, someone who he doesn't know and is just some regular, ordinary citizen? Like, that's so dumb and so stupid. Like, what is he thinking? Like, no one actually believes that, right? If anything, this is like a scammer's paradise, where they get free money, probably like a couple $100s from the person, and then they just keep sending him stuff trying to bait more money out of them. So yeah, your dad is completely wrong, and obviously he fell for something that he didn't expect. And hopefully for the sake of you and your family, this doesn't happen to him again anytime soon. My daughter is incredibly entitled, as she constantly treats me and my wife like garbage, literally blaming us for all of her problems, and refusing to take accountability for anything that she does. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I know this is a long post, but this all involves my daughter, and the entitlement she shows is honestly just so astounding. It all started when she was young. She never has been able to accept responsibility for her actions, and even if she wasn't directly involved, she would ignore her role in the events. For example, she had a friend sleep over, and they played Ding Dong Ditch on our neighbor who lives next door. And of course, it was all her friend's idea, and all of her friend's fault and not hers. My wife and I were both telling her, but wait a second, you were there, you participated in it. My words included were to say, if you're going to do that, go to another neighborhood where nobody knows us. Also, as a child, she would often, as she described it, accidentally hurt her younger sister. We would want her to apologize and say she was sorry, but she would respond by saying, I don't feel sorry, and I won't even say it if I don't feel sorry. We tried to explain how, as an adult, we often say that as an acknowledgement of an event, but also as an acceptance of fault. For example, if you bump into a cart at a supermarket, you say sorry as an immediate response. But even with that example, she still wouldn't do it. She's also a quitter. Every time something gets hard, she wants to quit. We enrolled her in karate, and every new belt level was another challenge. New skills to learn, new techniques to master, new forms to learn. I mean, she would be all excited about graduating, but then would want to quit a few classes into the new belt, all because it was too hard. We would explain that this is why you go, so you learn to do them and get better. We would offer to video the instructor so that we could practice at home, but that was not good enough. But eventually she quit at advanced brown belt. Then came gymnastics. You know, the BMW car payment a month, plus competition fees, uniforms, travel, and hotels. She would only eat chips and candy, and I would bring her cut up apples, but she just refused to eat it. Any healthier snacks she would just decline. She wanted us to spend money on the snack machine for more candy or chips. I tried to have a discussion about how much she's working out, like maybe 4 hours, 3 to 4 times a week, and then she would accuse me of calling her fat. But I never said that. She would then say, well, you said I needed to go on a diet. And it's like, no, I said you need a healthier diet with proteins and healthier food to rebuild your body. She wanted me to watch her at practice, and honestly, I simply couldn't. I was too enraged. Her behavior was horrible in the gym, and once again, it wasn't her fault. Was she climbing the door to look out the window? Well, apparently everyone else was doing it. Was she just standing on the balance beam and not doing anything? Well, apparently she was waiting for them to watch her. And it's like, trust me, honey, they are watching you. They are watching you stand there and not practice. If you practice, they are more likely to come by and offer some help. If you are just standing there, then they will pay more attention to those who are doing something. She would also say stuff like, oh, they just don't like me. Or my favorite, well, why can't I just have fun? Well, eventually she gets her license and we borrow against our retirement to get her a car. And trust me, this is nothing fancy, but it's hers to use. And if we ask her to help clear the driveway, well, apparently she'll just say, well, this is not my house. We then find out her friend gets her permit, so we have a talk about how no one else is to drive that car. It is in my wife's name, and my daughter is not legally allowed to supervise an unlicensed driver anyways. But also, she's the only one allowed to drive that vehicle. Well, fast forward, and she then lets a 14-year-old who she knew didn't have a license or a permit drive the car. And guess what? He totaled it. They tried to cover it up by switching seats, despite the fact that there were witnesses. Then they lied to the cops about it. But again, it's not her fault. He told her that he knew how to drive. And let's not even begin to mention the vapes. She drops out of high school because I'll never use any of that stuff in real life. We then use her college money to, yet again, help her get another car, which she had for a few months and sold it back to the dealer at a huge loss. Also that she can move states away to move in with her boyfriend. Thousands of dollars gone, and she has none of it left after about 4 months. And now she's also back home, because what happened between them is between them. Another time is when we were meeting up at a family member's house for football. Prior to that meeting, they stopped for dinner at a restaurant and picked me up in order to go. It was also sitting on the back seat next to her as we pulled up. Now, I had prior obligations, so I didn't attend dinner, but we all had arrived at the same time. I asked her to please grab my food, but she said to me, "You've got arms, go get it yourself." And I was like, seriously? It's right next to you. You could just grab it. But she then looked at me and said, "Why are you yelling at me?" Even though I wasn't yelling. I responded back by saying, well, why can't you just grab my food? Why are you yelling? And this went back and forth. My wife then had a talk with her and told her basically that she was being ridiculous and unreasonable. I'm the only person she ever treats this way, and I'm owed an apology. Well, as you can probably guess, I never got one. When we got home, I told her how upset I was by her lack of a simple act of kindness and to never ask me for another favor, because trust me, I won't do it. Don't ask me for help ever again. Well, at Christmas, she mentioned how she recognizes that she's a reason our communication isn't the greatest, which literally is the first time she's accepted responsibility, but still not given an apology. I then ask if she's ever been made to feel like she was less than a family member or made to feel like she was adopted, and to that she said no. Well, fast forward to now, and I help her to the doctor and she texts me and says, "Can we stop for pancakes?" And this is while she's back waiting for the doctor. I then text back and I say, "We can stop somewhere and you can buy pancakes, whether it's McDonald's or whatever." But her reply was to say, "Okay, well, never mind." But it's like, okay, I guess I'm the jerk here. On the way home, she tells me that she has a prescription that she needs to get picked up. Now, I don't remember how it came up, but she finally admits that she doesn't have her wallet. She has no way to pay for it, and she only has $35 in her account. And at this point, she's 18 years old. Now, does she want me to swing by the house to go get it? Well, no, of course not. She wants me to pay for it. I tell her that this is part of being an adult and being responsible. I then tell her about a company that can possibly give discounts that they might offer, and then I include my own personal experience with saving over $200 getting a prescription filled this way. But all I get is a thumbs up. But now she's talking to me because I'm apparently rude and disrespectful. And trust me, I know I will never win Father of the Year with my daughter. I love her for being my child, but I'm honestly just completely emotionally spent. Okay, I think your daughter is super spoiled and super rotten, and I think you have every right to be upset. And I want to start off with that because I think we have a bigger problem here. You both, and I mean both you and your wife, consistently cave in to any of her demands. It's like you get upset about what she's doing, and then you're like, okay, I guess we'll pay for it. Like seriously, you're a part of the problem. You are literally enabling this behavior in a weird way. For example, when she ding-dong ditched the neighbor, instead of saying, "Oh my god, don't ever do that again, you're grounded," you said, "Well, why don't you go to another neighborhood where nobody knows us?" You didn't actively condone the activity. Instead, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is fine. Do it somewhere else where we don't know people." It's like, what are you doing? That is so stupid. Why would you encourage this behavior from somebody who clearly is irresponsible? And I can get past the whole sports situation where she's like doing gymnastics or karate. I mean, that's typical kid stuff. Kids quit stuff all the time, so that doesn't bother me. But the second you describe that car incident where one of her friends totaled the car and then she tried to be like, "Well, it's not my fault," and even lie to the police, that would have been the final straw for me. Because there is no way on planet Earth she would ever be welcome back in my house. She would be gone forever. her. And I'm talking when she hits 18 years old, she's got to find some place to live. Like, that is so unbelievably crazy, because this is so much further than some like angsty teenager. Quite literally anything else would be acceptable except for this. This crosses so many boundaries for me, it's not even funny. But what do you do in this situation? You take from her college fund and say, okay, we'll get you another car, but then she turns around and sells it again. Like, what is going on right now? This is not normal behavior. You should not be putting up with this, and I can't believe that you are. So yes, your daughter is super entitled, but you are also super blind, because you are literally enabling this behavior from the very beginning. And if you want any kind of serious change to happen, then in my opinion, the change has to start with you. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.